Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Let me look at the question. Should intellectual properties be allowed? Dr. Meeks attended a conference where many experts argued that it would disallow that if we disallowed patents, the cost of pharmaceuticals would drop dramatically, and therefore people around the world would have access to better health care. Should we limit the protection offered by IP law? In a world where the millennial generation does not value as much as previous generations privacy or protection, should we discontinue IP as a right? Should we require Coke and Pepsi to publish their formulas? Explain why or why not. In my opinion, because I try to create creative marketing campaigns that can eventually be converted into a business. Based on that, I would favor intellectual property because you want to protect your original creation. You want to protect your original structure of what you created and keep it in a way where you can continue to make money off of it. I believe it fuels commerce, meaning ideas create ideas, meaning I can create a creative ideal and it can give somebody else the ideal about the idea that I have to make the ideal better. So it constantly like fuels commerce, like without, and I started in Tyson's, like without the incentive, I mean, I wouldn't create, I'm gonna be honest. I mean, why do it if I'm not gonna get paid for it? It's like, I'm working for nothing. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like there's a, there should be a reward to hard work,
Yeah, there's definitely no incentive to go out there and be this innovator and put so much effort. If as soon as I create it, someone else can then backwards engineer it and duplicate it.
Yeah, I sort of take the other, I take the other side because I think that when you look at certain industries, at least, like for Coke and Pepsi, I could care less if nobody else is ever able to recreate Coke or Pepsi. But when you look at certain industries, like pharmaceuticals or renewable energy or things that society really benefits from, you're producing something and you're making money off of it, but now we can't move forward with it. Nobody else can take that and make it better or apply it in a different way. We sort of limit ourselves by putting these restrictions on, and they're so long. A patent is just way too long. It stifles innovation.
I'm scared if they stop the patents. Sometimes with the patents, it make you keep a level of quality to your product. For example, I'm not a drug user or anything. I just research a lot. Like you have crocodile, you have bath salts. But you started off with weed, you started off with cocaine, and now you're getting all these little kitchen products. I mean, this is not even patented products. And look at the adverse effects of these street drugs that people are doing, like, biting off people's faces and different things. And like I said, it's not even patented. It's not patented. So just imagine when you don't have, okay, this is my product. I tested it, I stand by my product. You're going to start getting people that throw together different chemical components, and you're going to have, you already have it, but you're going to have more of a black market for saying, oh, this is illegitimate, but what's the standards? What's, like when they get to that level to protect their name and even limit the legal risks to being sued or even like adverse effects to the drugs. There's a lot of money spent in developing a drug, but there's also a lot of money spent in protecting the brand image of the drug. Once you open it up, to me, it's a little bit chaotic environment. Now, I looked at what you had, and I agree to a certain extent to limit it, but we got to find out what's the correct balance. That's just my opinion.
Well, I think pharmaceuticals a whole other beast in its own, and there's a lot of other things going on in that market. So that one's up for question and political debate all over the place. I'm not sure we'll solve that one very quickly, but just in general, the concept of intellectual property rights limiting innovation and creativity, that premise alone, I would have to disagree with, because it has to increase innovation. That was the reason why Coke and Pepsi in general were so successful, because they had to competition in not knowing each other's secrets was the reason why they had to drive each other. If Samsung didn't have iPhone, we wouldn't be innovating inside of Android. So that you have to have competition, or the intellectual property still allows other people to drive, because they have to go, they would go out of business otherwise. Except in the sense of a monopoly organization, the IP fosters innovation. It doesn't stifle it.
Well, I put it as a pro and a con. So obviously it drives innovation and commerce and competition. But when it really matters is in certain industries where we can grow off of each other. So if you can create a motor that's 20% more efficient than our current electrical car motors, then yes, you should make money off of that, and that's great. We want to encourage you to innovate and create that and patent it. But at the same time, I want to use that recipe and I want to build upon it, and I want to put it in my electric airplane or something like that. And with patents, that limits us from doing that. And so that's why I kind of put it as a pro and a con.
But in some way, I guess in some ways it does, but there's other ways around that. Of course, everybody's going to try to make money, but there's other things besides giving up your patent rights to allow other people to manufacture. It's called licensing and royalties. There's ways to do that. So,
sure, but it's not. I don't know. It would be over expensive to actually really be able to utilize that.
But what if you're an engineer, so your background, say you create this amazing thing to save the world. That would be awesome, but you have invested so much of your own money, and then you have to give up your intellectual rights to that, even though it could save the world, that you don't make your money back and you go out of business so you can't create the next one. That would be the risk.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that there's nobody willing to do it because they don't know. There might not be a chance of success, but you have to be able to at least get your investment back and make money. So there's got to be a balance of some sort. And so I agree. A lot of times, sometimes these places have a potential of creating their own monopoly in that sense, but doesn't necessarily have to be the case. My mom's battling cancer right now, and the cost of those drugs, one shot's like $10,000 just so she doesn't throw up for a week. That's insane. I get it, but
and there may be a way to make that shot better in some way, but because other pharmaceutical companies don't have access to that, and
right.
they won't for another 30 years.
I get the other side of it, absolutely. But I don't know how many billions of dollars they invested in that. Which a lot of times they have invested billions of dollars. So I shouldn't get it for $3 either.
Sure, but maybe for 5 or 10 years they can profit off of it, but then my company can take it and make it better and profit off of that, and then they will have to take it back and make it better again, and so it would drive more innovation. I agree. There's ways to do it. I don't have the answer, and that's interesting, especially when we're talking about the betterment of the society or betterment of the world.
if people would get behind that though, and they would only support those that offer, you know, that type of betterment, but I don't know, it's a tough one. It's so hard.
I'm concerned about the skill set of the company that wants to come behind, because if they had the skill set, they would have already had a viable drug that could compete against the drug the other company developed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you're putting your drug in the hand of people that may not even be skilled to take it to the next level.
Right? All of a sudden, Walmart's creating cancer drugs. I'm not sure, you know, I want that either.
Yeah,
You know,
great value, bro.
right. Somebody spends billions of dollars to research how to do this, and then, you know, 5 years later, you know, we've got these podunk mom and pop shops coming up with their own ways of making the same thing because they found the recipe.
But at the same time, if you have a patent on it and somebody wants to just bypass that patent, there's plenty of piracy and stuff like that going on, then they're definitely going to produce it in a black market sense, and they're probably going to do a shoddy job. So to argue that against that point, doesn't patent law also encourage people to make?
I don't know. Walmart makes all kinds of generic drugs already, and they don't do a terrible job at it. I mean,
And
there's
there's the
generics
FDA to
for a lot of
protect
things.
From drugs that are going to be harmful.
Some people would say that.
Yes, obviously
people
that's a
would
whole
say
different point, but
Yeah, that's a whole other political discussion there. I mean, I agree. I think it's extremely noble, and you're right. It's just, my opinion is somewhat idealistic. You know,
of course, yeah.
yeah.
And I understand that. And just, there has to be some middle ground between, you know, this guy making a
I
ton of
agree.
money and this guy trying to save the world. There has to be some middle ground.
There absolutely should be.
What
And
if
I don't
they-
know. It's like maybe like a yearly licensing fee, or I don't know. Time limits can make sense sometimes. I don't know.
But if you look at the original creator of the drug, they can make it's the same chemical. It's the same chemical formula, so they can actually create their own generic brand and just market it and get both shares, the high end and the generic. I mean, even if they would regulate to the fact to say, okay, after 10 years, you have to put a generic on the market. That's a solution to me.
You have to allow other people to buy in a royalty for it of some sort, you know, and maybe have the government regulate what that looks like too.
Right.
You know, it's like you can't be the only one selling this. There's got to be somebody else.
Right. And it's the length that really bothers me, that, you know, you've created aspirin and now you're the only person that can make aspirin for the next 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I
30 years seems like a long, especially in pharmaceutical.
right.
But
For almost anything in our current society, nothing.
But they can reverse engineer it. Once you get the formula from reverse engineering, it's up for grabs. I mean, if you, like I said, if you have the team that can look at that product and break it apart and say, okay, this is how this was created, and even innovate a step further, and you can defend it, it stands up. It holds up. They technically can't lock you out, because it's not like you infringe on the patent. You actually did the research, you actually did the legwork to find out what makes this work. Why does, like, what is the chemical components for this drug? And at that point,
I don't know if that's necessarily true, because you're patenting a process or a way of doing something. So if somebody dissects it and figures out how you did that, they still can't use it because you have a patent on it. Whereas if you have like a trade secret or a copyright, yes, you can recreate it in your own way and that's fine. But with a patent, that's the one that I'm really targeting, because patent is sort of, you're patenting a process for making something, or
there's patent infringement lawsuits all the time for various things. The patents I think are disgusting to me are idea patents. It's like, why even have those?
Yeah.
Like, I license the idea to run a headphones through a coat jacket, and so nobody else can put technology inside of wearable technology. I mean, that's what's ridiculous to me, is whenever people give out these, oh, I came up with this idea. haven't really perfected how to do it, but I have this idea, therefore nobody else can do anything similar. That's
Right, and that's
without paying me a royalty or something.
Yeah, like you look at guys like Elon Musk, and he's actually released some of his potentially patentable ideas because he isn't going to do anything with them, so he's releasing them to the public.
Yeah,
so
let
that
somebody else do it.
Like the people that patent things just so that nobody else can do it, that's just mind blowing to me. But
And see what Elon Musk released, as long as somebody come behind him and do, even if it's one thing different to the process, it becomes a new product.
Yeah.
You have to patent it based on each differential, like each.
Mhm.
So that's what I was saying. I wasn't saying, oh, take just reverse engineering, just give them back what they give. Go that step further to do something different to create, what the government says, a new product. And, you can actually patent it after that. I mean, but all I'm saying is that if I'm going to create something, I'd much rather you do the leg work, or like you said, give me some royalties,
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, sounds like we're kind of all on the same page. It's just how do you get to the middle line, and what does that look like? It's kind of crazy. In the healthcare, and healthcare is as big as a mess as our patent laws are.
You have the situation with Monsanto. They're trying to patent seeds, and I understand that you're trying to make the seeds better, but just the grief that they're giving the local farmers that purchase seeds one time. I mean, it's ridiculous. But that's when those local farmers have to go back to the basics and purchase organic or heirloom seeds, and then keep a paper trail as far as, yes, these are heirloom seeds, and I saved, I let it go to seeding, and just keep a paper trail, because at this point Monsanto is coming after the local small farmers. So that's another issue. That's why Nora's, I agree with what she was saying about the different industries like the pharmaceuticals, renewable energy, farming and food processing, water purification or processing. When I was looking at it, it was talking about when the local utilities privatize, it increases the cost by 50%. I mean, some people, on low income can't even afford water right now. So like I said, I understand what she's saying about some industries. You really need a limit on it, because it becomes ridiculous at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what you put here with limiting certain industries, which was kind of the point I wanted to get across. So I'm happy with that. The only thing I would say about the slide is that it's all positive. We didn't put any of the cons of the intellectual property rights, unless that's your next slide.
No, it's not. I'm 100% in favor. I need protection.
Yeah, and basically, my slide basically had all cons and really no pro. The cons of not protecting things. And
you guys are against me, I guess.
No, honestly, like I said, I support the certain industries. I'm gonna say this: in the world of business, where people are looking for ideas to take to market, they will love you. And the fact that you're going to willingly give away your ideas, but this is what's going to happen. You're going to willingly give it away. Someone is going to come and do one thing differently and put a patent on something that you could have did and had control over how you use it and how you license it to others that are going to actually use it in the way you intended to use it, because you're free to give it away. You kind of get what I'm saying? Like, you be the original creator of that idea. Someone come behind you because you didn't protect it and then take it and use it for a use you didn't intend it. So
I agree, yeah. But the point is that there's a time and a place for that type of patent in it. It maybe is out of control. The way it is. So. Can we move on?
It asks whether or not Coke and Pepsi should publish their formulas. I said it shouldn't. It would increase competition for them. There's going to be increased risk of substitution, meaning there's already substitute products on the market as far as cola right now. Usually when you get the original, you try to see what you can take away from the original to add still to your substitute in hopes of making your substitute better. And even the risk of counterfeiting, where it's actually an inferior product but packaged underneath the Coke name saying, hey, this is a Coke, when it's not. It's going to cause too much confusion. I believe, like, if you look at the basic ingredients, what's the unique formula of Coke and Pepsi? It's the syrup. The secret is in the syrup. Everything else is like, you can go online and say, how do you make soda? You can get a standard base for how to make soda. But the flavor, I was talking to somebody, I said, hey, you can take chicken. And KFC sells chicken, Popeye sells chicken, Churchy sells chicken. The only thing different is the flavor. It's the composition of the food. That's why they said that KFC
Popeyes
doesn't.
is better than the others.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, agreed.
But the only thing different is, like they said, that KFC won't even allow the companies to make the 7 Spice blend together. They have different components of it. It's just the unique flavor. So they're really protecting flavor at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's protecting the brand too. I mean, because if anybody else could create it, it destroys the brand,
To some degree, I think I didn't put anything in my slide, but what I wrote in my the paper thing, I think that a lot of what Coke and Pepsi have isn't necessarily because one tastes better than the other or because one has a better formula than the other. It's all about the marketing they've done. So to some degree, I mean, obviously they shouldn't publish their formulas, and I've never had any problem with copyright and trademark, whatever. It's patents that I argue against. So no, they shouldn't give away everything that they have. But at the same time, if they had to, for whatever reason, or if it was reverse engineered and figured out by the other company, it wouldn't really matter because it's the marketing that has put them where they are, not the formula.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Coke and Pepsi are brands. They're not just it's not what you're drinking that you're buying when you buy a Coke or Pepsi. I mean, I've switched from one to the other, throughout my life based off of, what was readily available. And it's not like one tastes better than the other. It's not why people buy it. It's just what they're used to. It's what the market has brought to them. So publishing their formulas, they shouldn't do it. But that's not what you're buying either.
Personally, when you were asking for deep pockets, in my opinion, Dr. Pepper tastes better. So if a deep pocket would take Dr. Pepper and put Dr. Pepper up there, Dr. Pepper could really compete better. I mean, that's just my opinion. Like, if you have the right, right now it's in the market. It may not be as high as Coke and Pepsi, but it is up there enough.
It's a player. It's definitely a player.
And with the right pockets and the right partnerships, you could move that product, and you'd be surprised that it could possibly outperform Coke and Pepsi. It's not impossible. I mean,
I would say as specifically Coke and as specifically Pepsi, but not as the entire company, because Coke and Pepsi are diversified into so many other kinds of soda, and other brands besides Coke and Pepsi. So if we're talking Coca-Cola Company and PepsiCo, then it would take a lot more than just building Dr. Pepper. Everybody in the world could just drink Dr. Pepper and not drink Coke or Pepsi, and Coke and Pepsi would still outperform them because of their other brands.
Yeah. I was focusing on just the product, like competition on the product.
Right. Yeah, I do agree with you, though. I mean, if anybody could do it, Dr. Pepper might be the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to like share your screen so we know what to combine into the PowerPoint deck so I can highlight so I can put it on it?
Who, me?
Like you and then Robert.
Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
have anything on this slide about Coke and Pepsi, but I'll put my cons into the chat if that's okay.
Okay.
And then actually, I think do I have the next slide?
I have slide 6. I think this was 5, right, for intellectual property.
Must be 7. Okay. I'll just put it in the chat then, and then Robbie, you can share your screen.
Okay. And Stacey, as far as slide 5, I mean, I pretty much said the majority of the same things that you had on your slides here.
Okay.
1 and 2. I can, when I share my screen, I can visit it real quick, but I think that we pretty much said the same thing, just in different words.
Okay.
I mean, we're protecting our rights, of intellectual property because we're in business, innovation, et cetera. So let me just share my screen quickly.
Okay.
Give me one moment. Okay, I can't share until you stop sharing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. All right, let me. All right, are you able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. So as I was just stating, this was my slide 5. It all pretty much mimics what you were noting. Pretty much your first slide that we covered, and then the second slide about I was on the same stance as no, we should not publish Coke's formula. The lack of also competitive advantage if you did so. So ultimately, nothing real different than what you had.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Moving on, this was slide 6. Of course, the question was strengths and weaknesses of the resource-based view perspective as a strategic management tool used to improve performance. Then, of course, explain whether or not you think the view is useful. So I use one slide basically and try to address all 3. The first thing is just to note that I think that the strengths was that it forced you to look at a company's internal resources. It created a workforce that we're looking at our resources, both tangible and intangible, to make sure that we can use what we currently have to create value ultimately for the customers. Of course, it promotes growth because as you're evaluating your current resources and staff, you're thinking about ways to grow those resources to ultimately, be able to deliver more stuff. So those were my 3 bullet points for it. And then moving on to weaknesses, I just put that while, RBV talks all about resources and evaluate resources, but it really doesn't say, it really doesn't give, from a manager's perspective, a clear way of how to utilize those internal resources and what you have as far as tangible and intangible. It really doesn't give you a clear picture of, it tells you evaluate them, but it doesn't say, okay, this is a clear path forward. And I also put that you have to look at smaller firms when it comes down to this. My resources are going to be limited, but I still have to do what the bigger companies are doing as well, and that's going to be great value for my customers. So when I look at scalability, I think that it's not going to be a tool to say, okay, this is all I have. I got to start thinking about being more innovative and things like that, and just not think about my resources that are available. And one thing I noted too, just, it's going to be hard to say what my current tangible and intangible resources are and come up with a plan to be innovative. I mean, the environment is constantly changing. I'm going to always have to revisit plans and constantly evaluate, qualities that we have internally and adjust to make sure that I can hold that competitive advantage. It's just one that, it's not just visit one time and I'm done. I'm going to be able to keep that advantage. I'm going to have to constantly go through this process. And then overall, I just noted that it is useful, but be in mind that, you just have to be cognizant of the limitations that I noted above when applying this theory. This isn't the end all be all in the solution. You have to be cognizant of how you're going to apply what you've analyzed as far as your internal resources and putting this in play to ultimately be successful. So thoughts here, or additions for strengths or weaknesses, or?
It's like a pretty good overview. My only thought was RBV, I think it's too general. You can squeeze any firm into, what we have versus what we do. I don't know. I think it's just not really, I think it's just too broad. It's too general to really be that meaningful. That's just my opinion, of course. Because a resource can be defined as anything, really. It could be your people, your processes. It could be trademarks, your brand. It's just too broad.
Yeah, it's everything, right?
Really meaningful.
It's helpful, but it's not. You're right. Like, it's not going to be specific enough. You have to do it, and you'd almost cater it to well, this is what I want my competitive advantages to be, so I'm going to steer everything in that direction. So yeah. See, we did an RBV, and this is what it says. So it's a little simplistic, but it's not useless. It's one piece of the puzzle, I guess.
Exactly.
I definitely wouldn't make my sole decisions off of it. Might get
No, you definitely can't. Okay, Stacey, any thoughts?
I guess for me, it probably because of where I work, it kind of resonated more with me of it's how you look at business and knowing that developing your human capital and then internal resources like your technology, your human capital, your processes, and creating a competitive advantage. So it depends on the industry whether or not it'll be too broad in general. Like certain service industries, it'll actually make you see it more, like it'll clarify a lot of things as far as why you don't have the competitive advantage, because you haven't built up your own, your resources.
All right. So are we okay with? I made a couple of tweaks. And just first, I noted that it was just human capital, but then you mentioned it could be in internal processes and
technology.
Yeah, I could see your point. If your primary resource is your human capital, yeah, this could be definitely a better advantage than other industries where you've got resources all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, you want to unshare and I'll share my next.
Sure.
Good job, Robert.
All right. Thanks.
Does that work?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it. So tiny, but
I can't.
looks like it might be minimized somewhere.
So you're just looking at my desktop, or?
No, I just see your PowerPoint,
Oh, okay.
and it's on slide 2.
Okay, I found it.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so this was kind of based on the Playing to Win video from Meeks. So basically, we take Coke and Pepsi and we say where to play and how to win playing there. So I defined where to play as a lot of the places they've already played: U.S. CSD market, non-CSD beverages, international. I just put a point here that the threat of substitutes is high in most of these markets, but at the same time, they have brand loyalty, so works to their advantage. Where to play, they don't necessarily deal straight to end users. They provide concentrate to the bottlers, and then the bottlers do the distribution, and then also they market directly to customers so that it's easier for bottlers to sell and for them to sell to the bottlers. So kind of just defining how we're going to go to market. Anything to add or change here? It's brief. But.
I'm slightly confused about the threat of substitutes high, because you were saying where to place. So could it be threat of substitutes low? Like, do you want to go in a market where the substitutes are low?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying that in these markets, the threat of substitutes is high, which would, you know, your substitutes would be your bottled water, coffee, beer, whatever. So there's a lot of different substitutes, but
Yeah, the preference would be to go where substitutes are low. That's just not the case in the U.S. soda market.
right. So I don't know if it really fits on this slide because it's sort of a different point, but it's just what I was thinking of at the time.
What's the reality?
Yeah. Do I get rid of it, or what do you think? Okay, well, maybe the next slide will send us in one direction or another. So how to win in that playing field. Obviously, mass production, mass distribution. Every store and restaurant should have our brand, which I put in here. It raises your barriers to entry. Of course, branding is going to help big time. And that's a lot of what they've done. Their lifestyle advertising, compared folks to Pepsi advertising and so on. Cost competition, they've done some price cutting to undercut each other. Support the bottlers and distribution methods. So that again would go with, it's going to be harder for those bottlers to get out of those contracts, especially because we're supporting our bottlers. We're going to help them with display units and coolers. And so even if they want to get out, they probably won't. They won't get a better deal elsewhere because we're supporting them. So we're about to lose the video.
Okay.
Any thoughts on this slide so next person can share?
No.
So, it says less than 1 minute, so we'll just have to rejoin.
All right.
Just one more slide?
Yeah, I have a slide left. List reasons that functional business and corporate level strategies of a company must align. Do you want to close out and then open back